Yeah, thanks for coming out. Excited to talk to you guys today about hydration. I have had a lot of very good races in my career where I have really nailed my hydration, and I've had a lot of really bad races in my career where my hydration was terrible. And I'll be honest with you, hydration is probably the #1 thing that has either derailed my races or made my races really good. And it's one of the things that I struggled with a lot early on in my career. You know, as a new ultra runner coming from the track where you don't really do hydration at all, you don't even think about nutrition, you don't think about hydration. Coming into the ultra world where I was running, 50K up to 100-mile racing, out there for, anywhere from 3 to 20 hours, I didn't understand hydration. I didn't know how much I needed to be drinking. I didn't understand like the whole electrolyte to water concentrations, how to balance that out, and I really didn't know my numbers. And there were a lot of races early on in my career. There was a lot of inconsistencies early on in my career. There was a lot of big wins, don't get me wrong. That's kind of how I got started. That's how, I picked up Hoka and all of my sponsors and everything. But there were a lot of inconsistencies, and a lot of it was due to hydration. I ran into a lot of hypernatremia issues. If you guys don't know what that is, hypernatremia issues is when your pH levels are off, you're getting too many electrolytes and not enough water, too much sodium and not enough water. There's also hyponatremia, and hypo is the opposite. Too much water, not enough electrolytes or not enough sodium. And so I was overdoing it with electrolytes. I remember early on, everybody was telling me, you need more electrolytes, you need more salt, you need more salt. I didn't understand this, so I just, okay, cool, I'll just pile on the salt. And there were some races early on where I was getting 2,000 milligrams of salt an hour and only drinking like, 300 to 500 milliliters, which is, like 16 ounces or so. And it was just kind of like I didn't really understand that there was this ratio that you needed to follow. There was, such thing as a sweat test. And that sweat testing could give you your numbers of like what you needed to be doing, how much sodium you needed to water ratio. And that could be a huge difference maker on, how you were staying hydrated. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about this today, go into more depth on this. But I wanted to start off with a couple things that I did some research on a couple things. A lot of people, I think, don't understand how important hydration is in endurance sports. They recently did a research study, and this is what they found. So this is what it says. A 2% loss in body mass due to dehydration, so 2%, right? It's a pretty low number, can reduce aerobic performance by up to 10%, negatively impacting endurance activities such as long distance running and cycling. So even the smallest amount of dehydration, so 2% dehydration, can cause a 10% reduction in your endurance activity or your performance. It's pretty significant. I mean, 10% is massive, right? Most people are going to be dehydrated more than 2%. If I had to give a rough estimate, I guarantee you 90% of people aren't hydrating enough. They're not getting enough hydration in. And a lot of this is due to the fact that people are trying to save weight, maybe. They don't want to carry the water, or maybe they just don't, they're not educated, they don't understand, I'm going to get a side ache or I'm going to get a gut ache if I drink too much. Well, there's ways to get around this. There's ways to understand these things and to train your gut, to train your body to be able to handle these amounts of liquids that you need. And we'll go into more depth on that. But I think it's just important that we realize how important hydration is. So right now, everybody's oohing and ahhing about carbohydrates. right? Carbohydrates are the thing. More carbs, more carbs, more carbs, right? Which is, I do a lot of carbs. I do 110 to 120 grams an hour, which is considered high carb. People are trying to push it beyond that now. Oh, 140, 160 grams of carbohydrates. It's just absurd, to be honest with you. It's not needed. Also, people don't realize that hydration is more important than carbohydrates. Hydration and carbohydrates go together. But if you are dehydrated, your blood flow slows down, right? If your blood flow slows down because you don't have enough blood plasma in your body, you're not able to absorb the carbohydrates into your cells. Your cells transfer those carbohydrates to your muscles. So if your blood slowed down because of dehydration, you're not utilizing those carbohydrates. You can eat as much carbohydrates as you want, but if you're dehydrated, you're not absorbing them. They're not getting to your muscles. Or if they are getting to your muscles, they're getting there really slowly. And this is why people are like, oh man, I'm eating all these carbohydrates. Why am I bonking? Why do I feel tired? Why do I feel fatigued? Why are all these things happening? Well, is your hydration dialed? Well, no, I mean, I'm drinking water. Okay, well, are you drinking electrolytes? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm drinking enough. Well, there you go. You can eat 160 grams an hour, but that's not going to help you if you're dehydrated. So if you look at it, the root is the hydration. And the hydration is probably the most important thing. You need to dial your hydration first, and then you can start trying to dial your carbohydrates and increase your carbohydrates if you need to. And that's the other thing I would say. I know this is about hydration, but everybody can't take 120 grams an hour, and everybody doesn't need to take 120 grams an hour. You need to do what's right for you. Just because Hayden Hawks or Jim Walmsley or David Roche or whoever else takes 120 to 160 grams an hour doesn't mean you need to. There's also a difference between how fast we're running and metabolizing these carbohydrates compared to people in the middle and the back of the pack, where their metabolism's not going to be as high. They're not going to be able to absorb and metabolize these carbohydrates as much as someone like me, who's literally running at the fastest, highest level, right? And so for some people, they've actually seen that eating too many carbohydrates can actually cause a lot of GI issues, can cause a lot of stomach issues. People are wondering why they're getting sick. They're like, Jim Walmsley's doing 120 grams an hour. Why is it working for him and not me? Well, Jim Walmsley's running a lot hotter, a lot faster. He's metabolizing a lot quicker than you are. And that's what we got to realize. My wife, actually, Ashley, has run into this issue. She was trying to do what I was doing. She was trying to do 100 plus grams an hour. It wasn't working for her. She was getting sick. She was throwing up. She was having all these stomach issues. We dropped her down to 60 grams an hour. 60 to 90 is probably where most people need to be honest with you. We dropped her down to 60. She's had the best performances of her career at 60 grams an hour. 60 grams an hour is sufficient for her. And that's what she can absorb. And she feels high energy and she feels just fine. For me, I'm doing 110, but also I'm running a lot faster, and that 110 didn't just come in a week. I'll tell you that much. It's taken me 5-6 years to train my gut to be able to take that amount in. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but I found the right products, I found the right things to allow me to be able to do that. But anyways, back on the hydration. I wanted to read this a little bit too. These are kind of some of the symptoms that can happen with dehydration. So dehydration negatively impacts running performance by reducing blood volume. We talked about that, right? By reducing the blood volume, increasing core temperature. So everybody wonders, how do I cool myself down? I need to practice cooling techniques and different things like that. While those are very useful, don't get me wrong, I do a lot of cooling techniques at a race like Western States. if you're not, the best way to cool yourself and to not let your core temperature rise to a point where your body shuts down is hydration. Hydration will reduce your core temperature and hindering the body's ability to regulate heat. Again, without hydration, you can't regulate heat. This can lead to fatigue, decreased endurance, and even muscle cramps. So these are some of the symptoms: muscle cramping, fatigue, lightheadedness, dizziness, confusion, dry mouth and mucous membranes, increased heart rate and breathing. Nobody wants that, right? And those are all signs of dehydration, and those are what dehydration can lead to. So one more quote. I wanted to throw this out there, and then I'll go into more of what I wanted to talk about. In terms of sports hydration, when we're talking about electrolytes, so this is electrolytes now. We're going into electrolytes. So we talked a little bit about dehydration. A lot of people don't know what an electrolyte is and why electrolytes are important, right? So I wanted to explain it through this. In terms of sports hydration, when we're talking about electrolytes, we're mainly talking about salt, sodium. Salt and sodium are a little different, but for the most part, they're the same thing. Plain and simple. A lot of people are so concerned about replacing potassium and magnesium and all these different electrolytes, right? Well, those things are important. Most of us get enough of that in our daily diet. We're not trying to replace that when we're racing. You have enough in your system. You're not going to run out of potassium, and that's not going to be the thing that hurts you in a race, is running low on potassium or magnesium. Those are things you can replace after. We're trying to replace the here and now. What's the thing that's going to affect me the most? What's the things that's going to lead to this dehydration that we talked about? Salt, sodium, plain and simple. That's what we're trying to replace. Salt is particularly important to help nerves transmit electrical signals to the muscle of the body, including the heart, and to help the body absorb nutrients into the cells. So that's why electrolytes are important. Electrolytes are the transportation system. That's what's taking those water molecules and letting them go into the bloodstream, into the cells, to then get delivered to the muscles. They're also helping with that electrical stimulus to help fire the muscles. That's why when you get dehydrated and you're not taking enough electrolytes, your muscles start shutting down. They start cramping because they don't have what they need to be able to fire properly, and they're not being able to absorb the liquid or the hydration, the carbohydrates, things like that are coming into your body. So that's why we replace electrolytes. Now, I wanted to throw some out there, like who has ever had a salt or a sweat test done before? Anybody? No? Okay. This is the first thing that I would recommend, okay, is getting a sweat test done. If you really want to dial in your hydration and know exactly what your numbers are, you need to get a sweat test done. Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark. You're like, all right, well, maybe 500 milligrams, maybe 1,500 milligrams, who knows, right? Just an example. So I've been sweat tested 2-3 times. So your sodium concentration, so there's two things that lead to a good, proper hydration plan, is knowing your sodium numbers. Your sweat test will tell you that, what your sodium numbers are. The second thing is your sweat rate. So how much sweat you're actually losing, or how much liquid is going out of your body. There's two ways to gain or to learn these things and to get your numbers down on both of these. One, it's going to change. So your sweat loss or your sweat rate is going to change according to what the environment is you're running in. If it's cold outside, you're not going to be sweating as much. If it's hot outside or it's humid, you're going to be sweating a lot more, right? So I'll tell you, we'll go into this, but I'll tell you a way that you can actually measure your sweat loss or get your sweat rate down. And a lot of this you want to do in an environment, if possible, to where you're going to be racing. So if you're racing a local race, that's easy. You can do this test at home here in St. George. You know that, hey, I'm going to be running in Virgin at the Zion 100 or whatever. It's going to be similar type of climate. You want to pick a day maybe that has the same type of temperature to what you're going to be racing in, and boom, you're good. If you're racing in China or Hong Kong, I sometimes race in Asia, it's a bit different because it's a lot more humid there, right? It's not dry. If you can get out there a week before, 10 days before, do a quick sweat test or a sweat loss test, then yeah, great. That's awesome, right? I usually try to show up races 2 weeks before. I'm a pro though. I know a lot of people can't do that. But I do a sweat rate test when I go out there, just so I know my numbers. And I'll tell you how to do that. The second thing is your sodium concentration. Now this can only be done through a sweat test. A sweat test will tell you your sodium concentration per liter of water or per however they do the test. This is pretty hereditary. It can change a little bit depending on if you're fit or you're not fit. Your diet can change it just a little bit, but not a lot. It's going to be pretty much the same every time you do a sweat test, and that's hereditary. Some people are just genetically salty sweaters. Some people aren't. Me, I'm in the middle. I'm pretty average. So average is a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every liter of water that I sweat, I also get rid of about 1,000 milligrams of sodium. So that's a 1-to-1 ratio. On average, that's what most people are. So if you haven't done a sweat test and you're like, man, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what my sodium concentration is. Try and stick to the average. I would say do 1-to-1. So if you're taking in a liter of water or 32 ounces of water, you need to be also taking in about 1,000 milligrams of sodium. But everybody's different. I have athletes that have gotten sweat tests where they're 500 milligrams for every liter of water. So if they start taking in 1,000 milligrams for every liter of water, they're going to run into a lot of issues. Their pH levels are going to be off. They're probably potentially down the road, especially if they're doing a long ultra. Because remember, the longer the ultra, the more expounded that's going to be. For the short stuff, you can kind of get away with it. But say you're in a 10, 15, 20-hour race, and you're taking 500 milligrams more of sodium every hour, think about what that's going to be at 10 hours. Your sodium concentration is going to be here. Your water is going to be here. This is when you start running into potential hypernatremia. This is when you start potentially having that dizziness. You're getting sick. You start vomiting because your body's rejecting all that salt that you're putting into your system, or that sodium. Did you have a question?
Yeah. All these numbers you're talking about are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
On a training run, I can go carry exactly what my body needs. How do you manage that in a 100-miler where you don't have your stuff, or do you carry your stuff versus on-course nutrition and filling up your hydration bladder with whatever fuel is in that water jug at that aid station?
Yeah, I was going to talk about that, but that's part of the race plan. You need to set up a race plan, and you need to not be afraid to carry what you need to carry.
Okay.
It's plain and simple. If everybody's trying to save weight in this sport, it's ridiculous. The weight's not going to slow you down. Getting dehydrated is going to slow you down. So just an example, my buddy Rod Farvard, second place at Western States last year, right? Second fastest time ever at Western States. He's a heavy sweater, very heavy sweater. He's got his sweat rate down, his concentration's down. He knew, hey man, I have to drink double the amount of everybody else is doing. But he knew that if he ran into dehydration issues, it was going to slow him down more than carrying that extra weight. He was carrying a liter more of water than me and Jim were at Western States last year. He had 2 bottles in his pack. This is why he had a pack on. So me and Jim had belts because our sweat rates are lower, and we could carry 2 bottles and be just fine. And we could get to the aid stations in enough time that we were drinking enough because our sweat rates are low. Rod you can see it on the dude. He's sweating profusely all the time. The dude had a pack, 2 full bottles on the front, 2 bottles on the back, and he's just going through them, right? 2 more bottles than me, and he still beat me by 15 seconds, right? I had to throw that in there because it was only 15 seconds. But he beat me. I mean, he ran the second fastest time ever at Western States. He was carrying more weight than me, right? But it's because he didn't slow down because of dehydration. He had to fill up just as much. Yeah. Yeah. So probably more. Yeah, but he had a system. He had a pack, I had a belt. The pack worked for him. He trained in it. He had been used to that weight. He knew exactly how it was going to feel. When he was going into aid stations, I was grabbing handhelds. He had a second pack ready to go at the aid stations. He'd throw off the one pack, put on another pack, and get out. He was getting through the aid stations just as fast as me and Jim were, and getting all of his water and everything he needed because he had a different system than we did, A fitter me would have destroyed him, but no, I'm just kidding. Don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. No, we joke about it. He's a good dude. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so sweat rate. You need to know your concentration or your shooting in the dark. There's a way to get a sweat test done, and I would highly recommend it. Dana back here, she has her place over here. She does sweat testing at a very reasonable price. Also, Precision Fuel and Hydration does sweat testing if you're out of town and you needed to get it done somewhere else. But I would recommend Dana. She can do it for you, and she can get you your numbers. Do you want to maybe tell them more about that, Dana?
Yeah, I mean, Hayden knows his stuff, but I just want to give an example of an Ironman. I kind of missed the start, so I'm not sure if you guys are all trail runners or whatever, but one of my Ironman athletes, I tested her before Oceanside, and Oceanside and St. George are just like 6 weeks apart or something like that. And at Oceanside, she was somebody, in my opinion, somebody who knows stuff at like a, not Hayden level, but just like an athlete sort of level knows stuff, okay? Then they end up doing too much. So in Oceanside, she like knew her stuff, and she took in, like Hayden said, she took in too much for her actually. Then we tested her, got her numbers, and she was like, holy cow, like this is not, I was taking in way too much. But she had the same like physiological responses as somebody who doesn't take in enough. That's the confusing part of like not knowing. And so then with her numbers, she uses the numbers on St. George, and like even though they're not too much apart, she like did way awesome at St. George by just fine tuning it by 200, 300 milligrams of sodium will definitely like make a difference in, in your thing. But the sweat test I do is super easy. I do some really hard stuff in the lab, but the sweat test is really easy to do.
What's the cost?
70.
And you just make an appointment?
Yeah. I'll have my cards at the end.
It's worth the investment, 100%, just to know your numbers, and then you can go and practice that. So that's the second thing. That's the next thing I want to talk about is practicing this. Like I said before, it took me 6 years to dial in, I would say probably 6 years, to dial in my nutrition and to train my gut to be able to handle these amounts of liquids, these amounts of carbohydrates. It's probably not going to take you that long. It was, especially because you're coming to things like this, you're getting sweat tested, you know these things. All those things were part of my process in gaining all that down. I wish I would have known all this before, because I would have probably made a lot more money winning races and had a lot, better performances at some races. I remember a couple races where I had to DNF. I had to drop out because at the beginning of the race, I was fine. I was feeling pretty good. I'd get to around that 10-hour mark, and I just would get dizzy, extremely dizzy. And I literally couldn't even stay on the trail. And I'm like, man, what is going on? And then all of a sudden I'd start getting really nauseous, and I'd just start vomiting uncontrollably. I couldn't stop it. I'd stagger into an aid station and be like, oh, where am I? I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. My wife's seen this, she was crewing me, and it's a pretty scary situation sometimes. And you're just like, oh, what's going on? And I kept running into this issue. And again, it was because I was getting too many electrolytes and not enough water. And those are some of the symptoms that you'll get, and I DNF'd numerous times because of that. Finally, when I got the sweat testing done, I got my numbers, I realized that I was doing too much. I started actually training at what I knew I needed to be doing and racing at those numbers that I had down. Never had that issue ever again. Never even felt those things at all. And it's pretty crazy because those races, some of those races that I was doing where I DNF'd, they weren't even hot races. One of them was UTMB, and it was cold. And I'm like, what's going on, right? I ended up dropping out halfway at UTMB, my first try at UTMB, because of this issue, not even knowing what it was, thinking it was like some training mistake, or thinking it was like, oh, I'm just too fatigued or tired, or maybe it's the night, I can't get through the night. It was none of that stuff. It was the hydration problem that I was running into. As soon as I got that down, I started running Western States, which is a lot hotter than UTMB. I ran the hottest I think second hottest Western States ever recorded. Didn't have one single issue. No cramping, none of those dizziness issues, none of that problem. And it was like, wow, this is such a huge game changer. But you have to train with this stuff. Luckily for you guys live in southern Utah, so if you're trying to train for a hot race, it's pretty easy to dial that in here and to do those things, right? I would recommend, this is what I do. So I usually take any run over 60 minutes, I'm taking hydration with me. Any run over 90 minutes, I'm taking hydration and fuel with me. Like proper race day hydration, proper race day fuel. And I'm training my gut. Not only is that going to train your gut and help you be able to get all that down before the race, so then you go to the race and it's just easy. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You're like, oh yeah, just got to do what I did in training. It should work. But you're also fueling your training runs, which is going to help you recover faster, which is going to help you feel better and get a more quality session in, which is going to help you increase fitness. How many of us just go out the door with nothing and, oh yeah, I'm just going to go run, right? And you come back from a run, you're like, man, why did I feel so bad today? I feel terrible, right? A lot of it's probably you're dehydrated, especially if you work all day and then go out in the evening and you're like, you haven't drank the whole day, and then all of a sudden you're trying to go out on a run in 90-degree weather and you're dehydrated already before you even enter the run. And then you don't take anything with you and you're getting more dehydrated. And then you wake up the next day and you feel like you're hungover or you're freaking tired. Oh my gosh, I can barely get out of bed. It's because you didn't recover from that run and you're more dehydrated, right? So it's like hydration is not only important to do during, but it's important to before and after as well. You should have a good hydration plan. And as soon as you can start implementing this into your daily life and into your training and actually hydrating your runs properly, you'll see huge improvements. You'll feel better, your mind, you'll be less tired, you'll enjoy training more. And how easy is it just to carry a bottle, right? Throw on a belt, throw a bottle in the front of the belt, go out for a run. Even just one bottle, 500 milliliters is going to make a difference. If you can do more, great. And also, you're going to have to carry that in your race anyways, so why not just get used to that weight? I think a lot of us worry a lot of the times about running fast and what our paces look like or what it looks like on Strava, We want to look fast. Who cares? Being specific, carrying what you need to carry, getting your body used to that, because even carrying a pack or a belt or a bottle here or a bottle there is going to change your gait just a little bit, and you need to get used to that so that you can actually have that proper gait in the race, and that you're not just jumping into a race trying to carry all this extra weight, and then you're like, man, why is my quads locking up on me? Well, they're not used to carrying that extra weight. And if you do that in practice, you won't have those issues in the race. Preparation is everything in this sport. Any questions on that? We'll do a question answer at the end, but does that all make sense? Okay, the second thing I want to talk about, so I'm kind of a little bit everywhere here, guys, but the second thing I want to talk about is the sweat rate and how to measure that. I talked to you about how you can do that before a race, and you might have to do it, you know, in different climates and different temperatures to know exactly. But this is how you do it. I actually have a kind of a list here. So the first thing you need to do, so this is what I recommend first. So take your race, whatever you're shooting for, or if it's you want to run across the Grand Canyon, you want to run across Zion, and you say, okay, what's the temperature most likely going to be on that day? I mean, you can look at a weather forecast, you can kind of figure it out. Okay, it's probably going to be 40 degrees in the morning, it's going to be 80 degrees in the evening or in the middle of the day, whatever, right? What I would recommend is do a couple runs in your training block leading into whatever that is. Do a run at 40 degrees if you can. So go out in the morning, you know, go out around the same time as maybe your race is going to start if the weather's similar, and do this to find out what your sweat rate is at 40 degrees in that certain climate at that time. Now, 80 degrees, same thing. You need to do another sweat test or sweat rate test for that temperature, because you got to realize that you might be drinking 500 milliliters or a liter an hour when it's 80 degrees. You're not going to be drinking a liter an hour when it's 40 degrees. Your hydration plan needs to be adjustable. So this is a perfect example, Western States. Western States, when we start Western States, it's 40, 50 degrees usually up by Tahoe. When we finish Western States, it's 110 degrees. So my hydration plan needs to be adjustable according to the different parts of the course. So I might start off drinking 300 milliliters an hour. I might graduate to 500, 750 milliliters an hour, you know, middle of the race. And then when it starts getting 100 plus degrees, I'm drinking more than a liter an hour. I'm drinking, you know, 2.5 bottles an hour. And you need to have that all adjusted in your race plan. You need to have that, you know, talk to your crew about that. Be like, okay, you know, beginning of the race, I only need 1 bottle at this aid station, but then when I get to this aid station at the end of the race, I need 3 bottles. So we need to have those made, ready to go, drop bags, different things like that. You need to do your research. You need to do your homework and kind of figure all that out. How you do the sweat rate test is this. So 1, weigh yourself nude. Now you can put your running shorts on if you want, but nude's the best. Weigh yourself nude. Hold any fluids you may consume on the scales with you. Run for an hour. So any fluids you're going to drink for that hour, right? So if you say, oh, I'm probably going to consume 500 milliliters, weigh that with you, right? After your run, towel yourself off and weigh yourself nude again.
Are we running nude?
If you want to. The weight loss is equivalent to your sweat loss. So for example, 1.1 pounds or half a kilogram is equal to 16 ounces or 500 milliliters. So if you've lost 1.1 pounds in that hour, you need 16 ounces, 500 milliliters of water. That means you lost that much.
In addition to what you were carrying originally?
So you need to carry, so that's the other, he said this. For point 3, hold any bottles, even if empty, on the scales too, so they are taken into account pre and post run. So you just, whatever you drank, right, was replaced in your body, but then you sweated. So you actually sweated probably more than that, but that's what you lost according to what you drunk. Does that make sense?
So like if you didn't finish the bottle, you weigh yourself with just whatever's left.
Yeah. And that takes that into account because, so again, weigh yourself nude, with whatever you feel like you're going to drink, with the bottle in your hand. Go for your run for an hour. An hour is easy because that's what we're trying to get is an hour, how much you need to drink per hour. And then you towel yourself off, weigh yourself again nude with the bottle in your hand. And then I think the biggest numbers are 1.1 pounds is equal to 16 ounces or 500 milliliters, right? So if you lost half a pound, you only lost 250 milliliters. If you lost 2 pounds, you lost a liter. So a pound is 500 milliliters. And remember, a 500 milliliter is a typical flask, 16 ounces, 500 milliliters. I personally think milliliters is easier than going by ounces because when you're replacing your sodium, it's in milligrams. So it makes it a lot easier. Milligrams, milliliters, 500, 500, right? So, any questions on that? That makes sense? I guess you can reach out to me if you need that again, or can probably send it over. Derek can put a link on the video. Yeah, cool. Now we're going to go into a bit of electrolytes and just the importance of how you replace the electrolytes and the different ways you can replace the electrolytes, okay? Now electrolytes, we talked about the importance of electrolytes. This is a common mistake that a lot of people get with electrolytes and how they replace electrolytes, okay? Now, say you're drinking a liter an hour, right? That's right, a liter an hour. Electrolytes, we're not going by the hour. So you're not, just because you replaced, so if you're drinking a liter an hour, it doesn't mean you're taking 500 milligrams of electrolytes an hour. Electrolytes are dependent on how much you're losing in liquid, according to your sweat rate, which Dana can get for you, right? So say for me, I'm 1,000 milligrams of sodium per liter of water that I lose, not per hour. That's a very important thing because, yeah, it depends on how much you're drinking. So if I'm drinking 500 milliliters of water, I only need to take in 500 milligrams of sodium. I'm not taking in 1,000 milligrams of sodium per hour. I'm taking in whatever amount of water I'm drinking. So 250, I need 250, right? Mine's easy. Some people, like my wife's 1,500 milligrams of sodium per liter. So she has to calculate that and be like, okay, I'm only drinking 500 milligrams of water, or milliliters of water, sorry. So she needs 750 milligrams for every 500 milliliters. Some people are going to be less, some people are going to be more. So that's why, again, it's important to get that sweat rate down. Does that make sense? I just want to throw that out there because a lot of people think like, oh, per hour, right? Everything's per hour. I'm taking 100 grams of carbs per hour. I'm taking a liter per hour. Electrolytes are different. It's per liter instead of per hour. Different ways to get electrolytes in. These are just the products I use because I'm sponsored by Precision. There's a lot of other products that people use out there. Tailwind, a lot of other things. So it depends on how you want to get your carbohydrates in. Some people like getting their carbs and their hydration together, right? And so they take a drink mix, right? And every drink mix out there will tell you, I mean, they're making them a lot easier now where, this has 1,000 milligrams per liter. This is a 1-to-1 ratio, right? So 2 scoops of this is 500 milligrams of sodium in a bottle, right? But you're also getting 60 grams of carbohydrates in that as well. So you can just drink your carbs, drink your electrolytes, you're good to go, as long as you have the concentrations right with the drink mixes. I don't personally like that because I don't want to be drinking drink mix for 10 hours or 15 hours. It gets old after a while, and I need a palate cleanse, and I need something to just kind of cleanse my tongue. I don't like having just sugary drink in my mouth all day long. For a shorter race, this can actually be very nice because this makes it a lot easier. You don't have to carry a bunch of gels on you. You can just carry your bottles, and you're getting your hydration and your fueling at the same time. It's convenient. It's really easy. A lot of people use this. And again, just because you do it one way doesn't mean that's what you have to do the entire race. You can mix it up. You could do this for the first 5 hours, and then you could turn to water and gels for the second 5 hours to get your fueling in. And that could work for you. And mix it up if you want to. What I do, I take salt pills. So these are just electrolyte capsules, 250 milligrams per capsule. And then I just do water in my bottles.
Do those have potassium and magnesium? I know S caps do.
No, just, well, it has potassium, sorry. It has sodium, 250 milligrams, and potassium, 125 milligrams. So, again, those aren't as important. You need a little bit, maybe, but those aren't going to necessarily be the difference maker. It's the sodium that we're looking at. But yeah.
So then if you wanted to supplement whatever drink you have
Yep.
with just table salt, what's the disadvantage of doing that?
So table salt's going to be a bit different. So I don't know the exact ratio, but sodium and table salt, do you know it?
It's like 40-60 sodium chloride.
Yeah.
You want chloride.
Yeah. So you're getting a lot of chloride and not as much sodium. Correct. Yeah. So table salt actually has less sodium. Then it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. So these are just sodium.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever, you know what you're getting, when you take these. Table salt, not as much. Also, like, if you're just taking salt, like out of a bag or out of something, you don't really know how much you're getting, right? It's just kind of like, I guess you can measure it out, but it's just a lot harder to carry as well. While these, it's just, you just have to pop a pill in your mouth and swallow it, and boom, you got it in. So it just kind of depends. I mean, if you want to like go through the whole process of measuring it out and knowing exactly what the numbers are, I'm sure it could work, but you're gonna have to do that. So, anyways, so yeah, with me, I just do water in here, and then I just pop these. So every bottle I drink, I'm 1-to-1 ratio again. Every bottle I drink, I take 2 pills. And so I just have a little bag of these, and then I have my water in here, and then I take all of my carbohydrates through gel. I don't do any drink mix. I do that for a reason. One, like I said, I don't like drinking drink mix all day. I just don't like having drink mix in my mouth. 2, it's a lot more convenient to not have to like fill my bottle with drink mix. If you go into an aid station, you can just fill with water and be out. So it's a lot faster to go through the aid stations that way, not having to worry about that. And 3, I know exactly what I'm getting in because these pills are 250 milligrams, so I know I'm getting exactly 500 milligrams. And my gels, I know exactly how much carbohydrates I'm getting, so my numbers are spot on. I'm not like drinking and maybe missing some at the bottom and I'm out 20 carbs or whatever it is because I'm not drinking the whole flask.
I keep hearing you say drinking, I think, a bottle per hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you timing it? Like, you look at your watch going, oh crap, I'm in an hour and I haven't drank, and you chug that bottle? Or are you just ultra conscious of drinking all the time, making sure it's gone in an hour?
Yeah, I try to get some type of fluid in about every 15 to 20 minutes. If I'm more thirsty, then I'll do a little bit more. And if if it's hot and it's 110 degrees and I'm like, man, I gotta drink more, I'll just drink, and drink and drink. But yeah, like I kind of set goals of like between this aid station and this aid station, I know it's an hour long. I need to make sure I finish this bottle in between these aid stations, right? And I'll kind of set these goals along the way. And that kind of forces me or makes me drink because I know, hey, I need to fill this, or I need to empty this bottle. And a lot of the times too, I'll tell my crew, I'll be like, hey, I need to finish this bottle before I get to you. If this bottle's not finished when I get to you, you need to let me know and I need to finish that bottle. Because a lot of us will just not drink. And you need to like be disciplined and set goals or tell people or find a way to drink because you need to drink.
With taking the capsules, and you take, let's say, 2 an hour.
Yeah.
Are you taking those, or I guess 2 per bottle?
Mhm.
Are you taking those like 2 before you drink the bottle, or are you taking 1 and then 1 halfway through, or both of them at the end, or how do you time it?
Before.
Just both of them before.
So I'll take 2 before so I'll finish 1 bottle, and then when I start a new bottle, I'll take the pills and then start that bottle. The reason being is I want those electrolytes in my system before I start drinking so that they can start doing work, right? They can start doing what they need to do.
So I guess you're not using a bladder in any of your...
No, but I know a lot of people that do bladders. Yeah, for me, it's just the convenience factor, and I'm running at the front trying to win the race. So like it's like the amount of time I'm spending in the aid stations is crucial. Like I have to be in there as least as possible. If I happen to take a bladder out and fill it, that's going to take quite a long time.
Yeah, and I guess
So
I just can't tell how much I'm drinking in my bladder.
that's another thing with a bladder, exactly.
Because we love our running vests, and our running vests have a bladder. And I'm like, I never know how empty mine's getting until I pull it out.
Yeah, I mean that's why I like these in the front, because you can kind of pull them out and look and, oh, okay, that's how much I've drank, right? Some of them have numbers on them, so you know exactly how much you're drinking. But yeah, everybody's a bit different on how they want to carry it, and that's why I say practice with all this stuff, and you'll know what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
If you get a mouthful, it's usually like 2 ounces. If you get a good mouthful. So if you want to like count your mouthfuls of swallow, then you can kind of sort of do the math on what was in your bladder and how many drinks you took. Yeah, that's an idea.
Yeah, for sure. And
But when you're like hours in, that's a lot of math to like that your brain really doesn't have power to do. But just an idea if you want to kind of
Measure it.
Yeah.
We're talking a lot about trail running and carrying bottles, but like in the marathon, I've started counting. Like when I go into the aid station, I look and I do math. Like I do estimates. Like that looks like 3 ounces. That looks like 4 ounces. I look down, and then I keep it in my mind, and I start adding. I do math, and it's made a big difference for me to just do the math. Because I used to cramp severely.
yeah.
And I wasn't starting early enough, I wasn't getting enough, and I've actually slowed down, because when you're running fast through the aid stations, you can't get the water, those dang cups down, at least I can't, for the amount of fluid I'm losing. And so I started slowing down, getting cups, counting and doing math, and it's made all the difference, along with getting the right amount of sodium in, but.
I had an athlete similar. He was running a marathon, and he was so worried about getting cups through the aid stations and slowing down.
Yeah.
And he decided not to slow down through the aid station and grab the cups, right? And he ended up blowing up. And he ended up, his pace dropped from like 7-minute mile pace to 9-minute mile pace. So he's losing 2 minutes a mile for 5 miles, let's say. He lost 10 minutes right there. I guarantee you're not going to lose 10 minutes by slowing down a little bit at aid stations and actually taking care of yourself. You might lose a couple seconds, if that. And so, yeah, I think it's just important to remember that sometimes it's worth taking a couple seconds to get what you need to get in and not trying to rush through everything. And also, if you can have that mindset, it'll keep you a lot calmer. It'll reduce a lot of anxiety. You'll feel calmer, you'll be present, you'll be under control. Because a lot of the times when we're panicking and we're trying to rush through things, we lose our minds, and then we're out of control, and then all of a sudden our paces jump, and then and our heart rates spike because we're just panicking. Did you have a question?
Yeah, in 100, do you use caffeine? And caffeine being a diuretic, how does that impact your hydration plan?
Perfect. Yeah, I was going to actually go into that next. So yeah, thanks. Caffeine's a crucial. I've run into caffeine mistakes. Thanks, Steve Hooper. It was your fault, bro. It was your fault.
Robbie started stuffing the caffeinated precision in there.
I made it through. It's okay. I still took second. I probably lost because of that, though. Anyways, just to like, yeah. We had a crewing mistake, guys. This is why it's important to talk to your crew about all these things. I went into an aid station, and I told them to give me non-caffeinated gels, and they gave me all caffeinated gels. Every single one of my gels was caffeinated. It wasn't Steve's fault. It was Robbie's fault. We'll blame Robbie. He's not here. But anyways, I went down the trail, and I'm like pulling gels out of my belt, and I'm like, caffeinated. I'm like, what the heck? And I was like, I either have to take these or I don't have any fuel, and I'm probably going to bonk. So I just started pounding caffeinated gels every 20 minutes because that's what I was on as I was trying to get a gel in every 20 minutes. And I over-caffeinated. And exactly what you said, it's a diuretic. It dehydrates you. It can cause a lot of issues. I got severely dehydrated. I started getting dizzy. I started having issues. I was like, oh, man, what's going on? Yeah. So if you're using caffeine, the more caffeine, the more important you have to be on your hydration. Usually with caffeine, you have to up your hydration just a little bit. I don't know the exact numbers of how much you have to up it, but you need to up it just a little bit. And you need to make sure you're really on top of your hydration, because caffeine is a diuretic. And when it goes into the system, if you don't have the proper hydration in liquid, it can cause a lot of issues. It can cause stomach issues, it can cause diarrhea, and it can dehydrate you severely. So yes, I have a caffeine plan now. I usually take in 150 milligrams every 2 to 3 hours. So if it's a long race, like a 100-miler like Western States, it's every 3 hours. If it's a shorter race, it's every 2 hours. Like, not shorter, but like a 100K or less, it's 2 hours, every 2 hours. Yeah, you have to train with it. And you have to, like, for some people that's not a lot, because if you drink coffee every day or if you're pretty used to caffeine. Yeah. So this is a good number for you guys. So for caffeine, so it's 2 to 3 grams, or milligrams, sorry, not grams. 2 to 3 milligrams for every, kilogram of body weight. So for me, I think I'm around 60 kilos. And so my numbers are 120 to 180 is every 2 to 3 hours. Yeah, because there's half-life. So caffeine has a half-life on it. So I think the half-life is like 3 to 5 hours, somewhere in there. So about every 3 hours, you're still gonna have half that caffeine in your system.
Do you notice that it messes with your heart rate to taking it, or did you just adapt to it?
It can if you're not used to it. If you're not used to caffeine, it probably can. Or if you're taking excessive amounts, yes. If you're taking beyond that, yeah, it can definitely mess with your heart rate and cause you to feel jittery and just like, oh, it doesn't feel right. But if you're taking in that range of where you should be and you're used to it and you've trained with it a bit, you should be okay. Again, train with these things. These are why we have long runs, guys. Long runs are the perfect training grounds to get all this down before your race, so you don't show up at the race and have all these issues with caffeine, hydration, everything else. So another way to go into with the electrolytes is you can take like these effervescent tablets, and every brand has one, I think. And these are pretty easy because you can carry that in your pack, pop them out, stick them in your bottle, and that's going to give you whatever it is on the effervescent tab. So any questions on that? No, any other questions? Okay. With fueling, again, this is another product from Precision that actually is really cool. So this is just carbs drink mix. So if you want to get your carbs in liquid form but not worry about your electrolytes and overdoing your electrolytes, you could do this and then take these. And then all of a sudden you're getting exactly what you need per whatever you're drinking with this. And this 30 to 120 grams, I mean, you can put 120 grams of carbs in a bottle if you want to.
Do you feel a noticeable impact between doing the capsules versus, let's say, a 500 milliliter of drinking the sodium as far as how your body feels, like getting all that sodium at once with the capsules versus like slowly taking it in over the course of the hour?
I haven't really practiced with that. I can't say. Yeah, I don't. It's a good question. Maybe I should practice more with that.
I like to take the electrolytes with the effervescent tabs. I like to put them in my bottles just because for me, like sometimes the tablets will feel like a bit too much. So that's
Yeah.
the way I like to get it.
I haven't had any issues with the electrolyte capsules, so I haven't changed because I'm like, this is perfect. It works good for me. But yeah, for some people, it might not work. Everybody's stomachs are a bit different, right? So that's what, again, practice with it. What time is it? Oh, we're about an hour. Yeah, different ways to just carry your fueling with you. Of course, you got packs where you can carry your bottles in the front. You can carry your bottles in the back. There's all different types of packs that you can use. That's a great way, especially if you're a heavy sweater and you need extra water. Packs are probably the way to go because you're going to be able to carry more in a pack, right? The capacity's bigger. You have belts, different styles of belts. There's other ones over there. You can carry belts and you can have a handheld as well. So at States, I just use a belt because it's so hot and I don't want to wear a pack because it just feels kind of claustrophobic and I feel like I'm just hotter with a pack. And I just feel freer when I'm not wearing a pack. So I wear a belt. I can carry all my bottles I need to in my belt, and then I have one handheld. And the reason I have that one handheld is because if it's in my hand, I tend to drink more. I've seen. If I can't see the bottles, or I tend to forget. And that's just me. I know that I'm going to drink more if it's here. One, I want to reduce the weight in my hand, so I'm just going to drink. And two, it's right in front of my face, so I know exactly that it reminds me I need to drink. A race like UTMB, though, let's say you have to carry mandatory gear, stuff like that. I'm going to have to wear a pack, and especially if you say you're using poles, you definitely want you can't be carrying a handheld and using poles, so you're going to have to carry in your pack. So you kind of have to take all those things into account of how you want to carry your water. At CCC last year, I actually did both. I did the combo. I did pack on top, belt on the bottom, had my mandatory gear in here, my hydration was in here, and then I had all my gels in my belt. That way they're easy to access them, and I could just pull them in and out and not have to worry about taking them out of my pack. Plus, it helps distribute weight a little bit easier, so you're distributing that weight properly throughout your throughout your body.
How many ounces is your handheld?
500 mils, 500 milliliters, 16 ounces. That's the standard. That's the easiest way to calculate, I feel like, too, because especially when you get like a sweat test done, you'll get that number, and it's usually per liter or 32 ounces, and so it's easiest to do 500 milliliter bottles. But if you want to, you can use smaller bottles too. Say you have to carry less in between races or in between aid stations. That's why it's important to plan your race out too and to know exactly what the time is between your aid stations, and everybody's a bit different, right? For me, it might only take an hour to get in between aid stations. For somebody else, it might take 3 hours. And so you have to know those things and be able to make sure that you're carrying enough with you in between. Or you know how to find water or use water, along that section. For some races, you can bring, like if you have enough time and you're okay with taking a bit of time to get water, you could bring like a filter bottle and you could dip out of a creek, and then all of a sudden you have water, right? And oh, there's a creek here, well, I can dip out of that water. I'll be honest with you, at CCC last year, I didn't stop at almost any aid station. I stopped at the 2 crude aid stations to get what I needed to. I didn't stop at any other aid stations to fill my bottles. I just filled them out of the streams along the trail. And everybody was like, what's this guy doing? And I'd just stop and fill him. And then they'd stop in the aid station. I'd run through the aid station, and I had all my water. And everybody was like commenting like, oh, he's not hydrating, he's not fueling, he's going to die at the end of the race. I had ran the course before, so I knew exactly where all the creeks were, and I knew exactly where to get the water. And of course, I'm in the Alps. All the water's clean in the Alps, unlike southern Utah. So I just dipping out of the water. But anyways, I don't recommend that. You could get Giardia. No filter. I don't recommend it. Do filter if you. There was a high chance I was getting Giardia or something like this, but it was something I was willing to risk to win the race. My thought was, if I get Giardia, I'll just be sick after the race. At least I'll have won the race. Yeah. I'll just be on the toilet for the next 3 days. So the race is over.
Dehydration has varying degrees.
Yes.
When you get pretty far down that line, do you have any tricks for coming back from it and staying on course and not quitting?
Yeah, you don't want to flood the system with a whole bunch of liquids all at once, right? That could make you even more sick, and your body's not going to be able to absorb that at that rate. So the trickle effect, like the IV drip of just sucking on a bottle a little bit at a time, trying to get back, catch up a little bit and get back to where you know you need to be, but don't do it all at once. Little bit at a time. You may have to stop at an aid station and just sit down for a bit and just get liquids in. I've had that where I was severely dehydrated and they forced me to stay in the aid station until I could pee because I wasn't peeing. And they're like, you can't leave this aid station until you pee. And so I sat there and, sucked on a bottle for a while. And finally I had to pee and I was able to leave the aid station. So, yeah. Your pee will tell you a lot too, right? Your pee, we want that pale yellow, dark Coke. It's not a good thing.
Can I follow up? How often are you peeing? I know it's kind of personal, but I
No, yeah, it's not personal at all, man. It's ultra running.
I don't stop, right?
Yeah.
Same pace all the way through. But when I do trail running, it seems like I gotta pee all the time. Like all the time.
You're probably drinking too much then.
You think so? No.
If you have to pee all the time.
Well, it just feels like, and I'm also out in the wild too, so it's like.
All of these opportunities.
Yeah.
I like to feel empty when I'm trail running versus, you know what I mean? So like when I'm racing road, I'm just at a higher click, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm just burning through everything I'm drinking, it seems, but I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. So I like to be on that, like in that stage where I feel like I have to pee, but I don't quite have to pee. Like you feel like it's coming and you're like, oh, it's almost there. I could maybe stop and get a little bit out, but you don't quite have to do that. That's kind of where you want to be. That's like the perfect spot because that shows that you're probably hydrating enough. If you have to pee every now and then, that's a good spot to be. You just don't want to be peeing like every minute. If you're just like, oh man, I'm just peeing and everything's just completely clear, then yeah, you're drinking too much. You need to die down a little bit on the liquids, or you need to make sure you're on top of your electrolytes too, because that could be the problem. The water could just be running through you and the body's getting rid of it because it's not absorbing into the bloodstream, right? Because you don't have those electrolytes on point. So make sure you're on top of your electrolytes first. If you're still peeing a ton, you need to drink less. And you kind of want to be on that verge of having to pee, but not quite. Does that make sense?
So I know these are real awkward questions, but at a really hot race like Western States where you were dialed in, your hydration was right, I would imagine that you'd still have to take 5 or 6 pee breaks during that race if you're taking in that much liquid.
Yeah, probably 5 or 6. That's probably about right. Yeah, just go. I mean, early on, when I'm not racing, I stop. Take the 15 seconds, pee, do what I need to do. It's not a big deal. Later on, when I'm trying to push and break people or catch rod, just go.
I mean, you have to understand that's very different for a boy.
No, I know. I know.
I'm like, I'm just gonna run through the street, trickling down my legs,
Yeah, no, it's up to you, and you can stop, but like, yeah, for me, I don't stop. I just pee my pants. I have to stop for a split second. I have to kind of like walk for a split second, get it going, and then I can start racing.
That's some major chafing.
At Western States it's not though, because you're getting wet constantly. So at a race like Western States, you're in river crossings, in and out of rivers all the time, and you're getting water poured on you, so you don't chafe because it's washing off. I kind of strategically place it like right before a river crossing too, or in the river, you know, when I'm crossing the river. No, I don't recommend this. This is just me, guys. Do what you need to do. Remember, again, I'm trying to win the race, so like every second counts sometimes. I mean, I lost by 15 seconds, right? It counts. Every second really did count that year.
So
Yeah.
I heard tonight that I have to have all my gels have caffeine and
Yeah.
my pants when I run.
Run naked. And he, yes.
See, these are mistakes that I made. Don't want you to make them. So, any other questions anybody had? I think I went through most things I wanted to. Hopefully that was informative enough for everybody. Yeah.
Well, this is just, what's your prediction for Western States? And I'm sorry if that's a touchy
It's an easy pick for me. Dan Jones for the win. Daniel Jones, man. He's at my house right now. He's staying in my house, so. No, so Dan is fit. I mean, he was 4th last year, right? Jim's out. Yeah, Jim dropped out this week. I'm out.
Killian's back.
Yeah, Killian's won enough. He don't need to win anymore. And also, I don't know. Killian's he's old. He's getting old. Nah, Killian will always be in the mix, of course, but we'll see. I think on a runnable course, he's not as strong as a mountain course. Like a UTMB, I'd pick Killian almost any day. But something like Western States, it's a bit different for him. You know, doesn't quite have that leg speed that a lot of us have. He'll be in the mix, of course, but we saw what Jim did to him at Chianti. Jim ran all over him. And I feel like Dan, not just because he's my friend, I'm being dead serious, he is fit. I mean, what he did at Tarawera in February was absurd. 7:17 for 100K on that course, it's crazy. He is the fittest he's been, and he was 4th last year. Yeah, Rod will be in the mix too, but I got to go with Dan. So, yeah. Let me make sure I covered everything I wanted to here, guys. Yeah. It was kind of out of order, but looks good. If you have any other questions, let me know. Hopefully that helps at least, gives you some ideas. You can do research. You can go on Precision Hydration's website too. They have a whole page of articles that talk all about this, what I talked to you about tonight. They have race planning things on there where you can actually meet with somebody, or you can put your numbers in and they'll plan out your entire race plan for hydration and fueling or whatever you need. You can meet with their scientists and bounce questions off of them. It's a really good resource if you're looking for something like that. So.